Welcome to Breakup Cheater, your place for real, raw, and heartfelt stories about life, love, and everything in between. Here we bring you tales that inspire, challenge, and remind us all of the strength it takes to keep moving forward. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a story that might just change your perspective. Sometimes the people we love say things that cut deeper than any fight or harsh word. What happens when someone you trusted quietly wonders if their heart belonged to someone else? This is a story about love, betrayal, and finding yourself again when the life you built starts to unravel. Stay with me as we dive into a moment that changed everything. It was a typical Sunday morning. Nothing extraordinary. Just the usual quiet calm that blankets a home on a slow weekend. Warm steam curled from our mugs of coffee, mingling with the faint notes of soft music playing from Clara's phone on the kitchen counter. The gentle aroma of freshly laundered sheets filled the air as we stood side by side folding clothes. It was one of those peaceful domestic moments, the kind you'd expect to feel comforting and secure. Then, without warning, Clara spoke, her voice casual as if she were commenting on the weather. "Sometimes I wonder if I should have ended up with Mark instead." I blinked, startled, not sure I'd heard right. I waited for her to laugh, to flash that teasing half-smile that usually meant she was joking. But she didn't. Instead, she kept folding a towel, eyes lowered, her tone almost indifferent, as though she were simply thinking out loud. I looked at her, disbelief tightening my throat. "What did you just say?" She met my gaze steadily. "I just think maybe things would have been easier." Her hand swept around the room. Our home, our life, the quiet world we'd painstakingly built together through sacrifices and time. Mark. The name echoed in my mind like a ghost. Mark was the man from her past, the one she'd dated during college. Ambitious, charismatic, always full of big promises that never came true. He disappeared after graduation, chasing opportunities overseas, leaving her heartbroken. I had been there to hold her then, comfort her through the tears and despair. And now, here she was, saying aloud that maybe, if given the choice, she would have chosen him over me. I didn't respond. Something inside me twisted painfully, a tight coil of hurt and confusion. I turned and left the room, heading downstairs, telling myself I was overreacting, that maybe I'd misheard or misunderstood. But Clara didn't follow. She never came after me to explain or apologize. Nothing. That night I chose to sleep on the couch. Not because she asked me to, but because the space between us had suddenly stretched too far to ignore. Lying there, I couldn't stop thinking about Mark. How often had she silently measured me against him? How often had I been falling short in a comparison I never saw coming? In my mind, Mark was the golden boy from her past. Charming, ambitious, the kind of person who always seemed to know exactly where he was going. I felt smaller beside him, even though he wasn't there anymore. After that day, something inside me changed. I stopped sharing as much. I stayed late at work more often, sometimes sitting in my car after arriving home, engine running, just to gather the strength to face what awaited inside. Clara noticed naturally. She asked if something was wrong. I shrugged it off with "I'm fine," even though I wasn't. I was retreating piece by piece, not with shouting or fights but by shutting down, building walls. I stopped opening up, stopped sharing the small things that used to keep us close. The laughter faded. Our dinners became quiet, mechanical affairs. We were like strangers who happened to share a table. I couldn't stop picturing Mark, this lingering shadow from years ago, growing larger and more threatening between us. I felt invisible, lost in his memory. Then one night Clara came home late. Hours past dinner, no text, no call, nothing. Waited. When she finally walked in around 10 p.m., her eyes were restless, her voice shaky. She said she'd met an old friend for drinks. She didn't name him, but I already knew. "Was it Mark?" I asked quietly. She nodded. I said nothing more. Instead, I silently packed a small bag. Not out of anger, but because I had nothing left to give. "Maybe you need to figure out what you really want," I told her softly. She looked like she wanted to argue, to explain, but I stopped her. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm just tired." And then I left. No fight, no scene, just a quiet, heavy silence. I stayed with a friend for a while before finding a temporary apartment. Clara called a few times, sent one message trying to explain herself, saying she hadn't meant what she said the way it sounded. I didn't respond. And then, in the quiet that followed, something unexpected happened. I began to feel lighter. Yes, there was loneliness, but there was also freedom. I started waking up early, going for runs, cooking meals for myself. I remembered who I was before I shaped myself to fit someone else's expectations. I saw clearly how much I had compromised, how long I had been trying to be enough for someone who was always looking elsewhere, dreaming of something beyond what we had. Months later, I filed for separation. No bitterness, no drama, just space. Then one day, Clara showed up at my door. She looked different, worn and thoughtful, as if she'd spent a long time reflecting. She told me she had seen Mark again, said they didn't even speak, just passed by each other. He hadn't changed. Still smooth, still chasing impossible dreams. Then her eyes filled with tears, she said. "I was wrong. I thought I wanted adventure, to feel wanted. But what we had was real. You showed up. You stayed. And I broke that." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But sometimes realization comes too late, because by the time someone finally understands your worth, you've already learned to live without their validation. I didn't hate Clara. Couldn't. But I wasn't the same man who stood in that kitchen months ago, wounded and waiting. I told her, "I'm glad you understand now, but I'm not coming back." She sank to her knees on the doorstep, sobbing. I didn't slam the door in anger. I closed it gently, almost with a strange calm. For the first time, I wasn't clinging to something that was already gone. I was choosing peace, for the version of myself that finally stopped begging to be seen. Not every ending is filled with anger or bitterness. Sometimes it's about learning to let go and choosing peace for yourself. If this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories that touch the heart. Thank you for watching, and remember, your worth is never defined by someone else's choices. Until next time, stay strong, stay true, and keep unfolding your story.